Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
From Nashville, Tennessee, Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, we share insights and inspiration from movers and shakers in the world of business. Our goal is to help you increase your self-discipline, overcome procrastination, and help you to take action on all the things that really matter.
How good are you at giving gifts? And who do you give gifts to? And how do you give? Do you give abundantly and generously and strategically? Specifically is what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about how client appreciation and giving gifts to clients and contacts and prospects can be a core part of your business generation strategy. This is a pretty radical conversation, and just prepare yourself. You might feel a little bit called out, because I certainly did. As I was conducting this interview and going back and reflecting on it and listening to it, I realized, man, I've got some growth to do in this area. But it's fascinating stuff, and when you think about it, you can go, wow, this really works. And if next year I get really good at this, I could see how this would grow my business, grow my influence, make my clients and my colleagues all feel better. And so it's a challenging conversation, but I think an incredibly valuable one that just might reshape the way that you think about buying gifts forever. I think you're going to love it. We'll get started just after this message.
This episode is sponsored by Southwestern Coaching. Southwestern Coaching has helped over 11,000 people increase their incomes by over 25% on average. As a successful salesperson, you know the importance of increasing your sales. But sometimes you might just need a little extra push and accountability to meet your goals and grow your business. Southwestern Coaching will help you increase your income through one-on-one sales and leadership coaching tailored specifically to your needs. Together, we will elevate sales. To schedule your free one-on-one business action planning session with a Southwestern coach, go to www.southwesternconsulting.com/Action Catalyst.
So there's a few people that I meet out there, and I just kind of get fascinated, intrigued by what they're doing. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. And the man you're about to meet, John Ruhlin, is one of those guys. He is an author, and he's an author of a book that is basically what we're going to talk about today. The book's called Giftology, The Art and Science of Using Gifts to Cut Through Noise, Increase Referrals, and Strengthen Retention. But he's also an entrepreneur. I know him kind of from the EEO crowd and community, and he runs a company that does kind of like professional gifting, which we'll talk about. And they work with over 25 of the pro sports teams, including the Cubs and the Indians. So, using his service just might get you to the World Series also. Small companies to $40 billion companies. And so he's an entrepreneur. He is an author. He's a speaker. He's also a sales guy, which is really probably the thing I find coolest about him, because we have a little bit of a sort of a kinship. He sold for Cutco, started working with Cutco when he was in college, and out of 1.5 million salespeople historically for Cutco, you're about to hear from the number one guy of all time. And so we're going to talk about some of his philosophies and how this all shapes together. So, John, welcome to the Action Catalyst podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. This is going to be a blast.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about Cutco and like, how did you get started? And because I think it's kind of amazing how, it's very similar to me in the essence of like what you did in college ended up shaping the trajectory of your future and the business that you now operate, and also the message that you teach. And I think we're very similar in that vein also. So tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah. So I grew up a farm boy in Ohio, so I'm a Midwest guy. I grew up one of 6 kids and doing not the most sexy thing in the world. I milk goats every morning.
Nice.
So people are like, how did, gifting company, what was your background? I'm like, milking goats. And they get the blank stare on their face, like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I milk goats. We had a 1-acre garden. We heated our house with wood. It was like, it was like Daniel Boone. But I got good grades. I was an overachiever. I knew what I didn't want to do the rest of my life, was, like hoeing the garden and corn and all that kind of stuff. And so I was going to go make mama proud and be a doctor. And I kind of took a little bit of a U-turn in college because I was looking for a way to pay for school. And I started working with Cutco, the knife company. And at the same time, serendipity, or, call it, just a blessing, that I was dating a girl at the time. Her dad was an attorney, and he was the kind of guy that every deal in town flowed to. He owned part of the oil wells and banks and the real estate that became the Walmart in town and whatever else. And he was always giving things away. He'd find a deal on noodles and then buy like a semi-load of noodles, literally. And then everybody at church the next Sunday, like 200 people, would end up with like 20 cases of noodles. And so I remember pitching him the idea of giving away Cutco because I thought all of his clients are men. They own insurance companies. And so I thought maybe he would buy pocket knives. They're all into like hunting and outdoors. And it changed my life. Like he's like, what about paring knives? And I'm like, Paul, you're going to give grown men paring knives? Like, that's weird. I'll sell you as many as you want. I'm desperate, but why? And he said, because I found out if you take care of the inner circle, everything seems to take care of itself. So I started to teach these.
Whoa. Say that again.
He said, if you take care of the inner circle, everything else takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
That was the light bulb. I was like, wow, like Paul gets, it's not about the knife. Although the knives are great and whatever else, but it was understanding relationship and the psychology of relationships and how to deepen these relationships and how to drive referrals was staying top of mind, not just with the so-called decision maker. It was the whole family. And so I started to teach those principles to my clients. And in doing so, they would, instead of ordering like one set, they'd order 1,000 sets. Which
is usually good. That's a good thing. I find when people buy 1,000 at a time, that improves the profit margins and the commissions.
Typically, yeah. It worked out. It kind of worked out okay. It worked out okay.
So that then leads us to this concept that you call giftology, which I just find fascinating. And it's impressive the number of people who do this and the kind of people who do this. We've had, one of my pals, Lewis Howes, has been on the show, and he's got a big podcast. He's a client. John O'Leary is another buddy that I've had on the show that I really respect, and he's one of your clients. And just really, the sports teams. So tell us specifically then, what is giftology?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for 16 years, and you have these conversations with CEOs, executives, directors of sales, sales reps. Everybody will say, oh, I'm all about relationships, or my relationships are my most valuable asset. So they talk about it a lot. They give lip service to a lot. But when it comes down to actually putting your money where your mouth is and your time and commitment and showing people that you care and that you're different, all of a sudden people go from, oh, well, that bar of chocolate with a logo on it, that'll work. The $15 like fruit basket. Oh, that's fine. And it's like there's an incongruency between what people say and what they actually do. And so giftology really is saying, if relationships are your most important asset, how you show them that you care and that you appreciate and show gratitude, or whatever buzzword you want to call it, really matters, because at the end of the day, we all have similar products and services, and it usually comes down to people like you. Do they trust you? And are you top of mind? And do they want to do business with you? And I found, it's a biblical concept. Like, in Proverbs, it talks about, a gift ushers you into the presence of the great, or into the presence of kings. And so what we're teaching in Giftology isn't rocket science. It's not anything new. It's just putting a spotlight on the fact that what you say and what you do should align. And in business, there's a lot of noise. And so doing things well, even in the gifting realm, because people suck at it, they're horrible at it. When you show gratitude well, you just stand head and shoulders above almost everybody else that you're competing against.
Mm-hmm. So basically, this plagiarism that you've committed against the Bible has become part of your business strategy. Uh-huh.
If I'm going to plagiarize, baby, that's where I'm going to go first. Yep, I stand guilty.
Yeah, well, we're all just regurgitating Jesus and committing plagiarism against them, right? So, so this is, but what you're doing is less of. It's not just, hey, buy people presents. There's a bit. It's almost like strategic generosity. It's also, it's not just give people as much as you can. There's a really strategic sort of scientific piece to this, like almost an empirical kind of element and calculating kind of. Can you walk us through some of those things?
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people, they want to be generous, or maybe they are, but they don't realize that by doing things what we consider wrong or not in a certain order, they're way less effective. And so, for instance, Christmas is a couple weeks away. And so a lot of people are like, well, that's when you got to send gifts. It's Christmas. It's the holidays. And what's funny, I send out $250,000 a year worth of gifts to clients, prospects, interesting people I meet at ball games, whatever else. I don't send one gift between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Not one dime of that $250,000 goes out in that 4-week time period, because all of my competitors and everybody on the planet is sending chocolate, nuts, bottles of wine, bourbon, golf stuff, whatever it is. And most people's tables are ready to collapse from all the crap that they're getting. So even if you send an amazing gift, it's just part of the noise and people are stressed out. And so we teach people to send gifts as a just because, not because of a referral. Send it as a, hey, I was just thinking about you. And when a gift shows up as a surprise and delight, it's kind of the Ritz-Carlton mentality. It's amazing when it shows up in the middle of March or in the middle of July, and it's the only thing that they received that month that wasn't a bill, or an invoice or whatever else. Like, people are like, hey, man, Lewis was thinking about just me. And there's an emotion. There's, like, in our DNA, like, we want to reciprocate when people make us feel good. And show genuine thought and care. And so we teach people to do gifts as a just because and as a surprise and delight. We teach people the gift by its very nature should be all about the recipient, not about you. But in business, we do that every day, and we call it marketing. And we make the gift all our colors. We put our logo the size of a softball on the jacket that we give or whatever else. We make the gift all about us. And then the other person that receives it, in their mind, they're like, why would I ever wear this? Like, this isn't a gift. This is you trying to turn me into a billboard. And so the gift needs to be personalized to the person you're giving it to with their name, nothing about you. And in doing so, every time they use it, they'll think of where it came from if it's a classy enough gift. So we take people, when we call it a relationship action plan. We say, who are your 50, 100, 5,000, however many people, who are your most, for a sales rep, who are the 20 companies that you wouldn't have, you won't hit your numbers this year without. And rather than send out 200 of something, send out 20 to the right people, personalize it, make it world-class, include their spouse, do it at a time when they're not expecting it. And now all of a sudden you got the recipe for something like special, where people are like, out of all the people calling on them, man, Joe or Steve or whatever your name is, like, man, they really think through things differently, and they actually care about me. And so there really is a science to it. It's not like most people, December 15th comes around and they're like, crap, we made money. I did good this year. I better say thank you. And so they delegate to an assistant, or they go online, and whatever the first thing that comes up that kind of looks cool, they order a bunch of those and slam them all out, with no handwritten notes to their most important relationships. And then they wonder why nobody calls. Nobody says thank you. Or if they do, it's kind of the nominal thank you. So we really do feel like there's a playbook, and that's what we put into Giftology was there is a science. This isn't random. This shouldn't be like reactive. This is a proactive response, for people to really stand out, be memorable, and deepen relationships with their most important people, whether it's an employee or whether it's a client. It's treating human beings like human beings again.
Well, it's especially wonderful that I brought you on right now this time of the year, right after we send out a bunch of logoed stuff to hundreds of people that my assistant helped me execute. And I need to go to the post office and get all that back.
Just stop.
I need to figure out something different.
Stop delivery. Well, there's no MBA class at Harvard on gifting. Like, even though relationships are important, most people just look around and copy what everybody else does. Nobody's going to write a note and say, I actually thought less of you as a human being for you sending me this gift. But that's what goes through a lot of people's minds when they get, like, I was at the same event that we met at, the Fortune Magazine Growth Summit, and we had a couple people come up and say, we've got from some of the recruiting companies that they work with, they got like this cheesy bottle of wine after they probably sent them a $50,000 commission check. And they're like, we will never use them again because it was the cheesiest, most unthoughtful gift ever. And just out of spite, like, we would never call them. Now they're thinking, oh, we just lost a client because of pricing or competition or whatever else. But really, they actually spent money to have a negative consequence, which is a really bad business move. Like, spend money to have negative consequences. Like, you don't want to do that very often. So it's it's simple. What we teach is very simple, but it's very powerful if you do it right or wrong.
Yeah, I think the timing, because that's an extreme example, right? Of course, if you send something, you lose a client. But I think even if they don't get the thing and go, oh, this is cheap, or oh, you're turning into me a billboard, it definitely gets lost among the noise. It definitely is, like, even if you send something nice,
yep.
If you send at the same time. I remember there was a line from this movie, Finding Forrester. Mm-hmm. You ever seen that movie?
No, I've not.
So it's a Sean Connery movie, and he's like a writer, and he mentors this young kid, and he says the key to a woman's heart is an unexpected gift at an unexpected time. Mm. And I've always remembered that, but it's like you're basically saying that same thing here with clients: unexpected gift, unexpected time, which I think is super powerful. Now, what about this? Let me ask you. When should we gift and when should we thrift? Because, John, it's like you also can't be sending out $100 gift to 10,000 people in your database. I mean, maybe you can, but I don't. Is that what you're saying? I don't think that's really what you're saying.
No, I'm saying if you have 100 relationships, boil it down to your top 20 and spend all of your money on your top 20 and do a nice handwritten note to the other people. Because at the end of the day, people are like, oh, well, I sent this person a 20. I have tiered gifts, and I'm like, well, the caliber of person you're giving the gift to doesn't maybe change from tier 1 to tier 3. So rather than try to have 3 different tiers, why don't you just take and invest money really well on these 20 or these 200 or these 2,000, and the other people, like, do the handwritten thank you note or do something really classy, but that doesn't cost you a whole lot of money. Most people tend to treat everybody the same, like, oh, we have 1,000 relationships or 100 relationships, and so they send the same vanilla $15 item to all 100. And I'm saying, well, take your $1,500 and spend it on your top 10. And in doing so, those 10 become your raving fans, your referral partners. They grow the business. When they leave a company and go to another company, as a sales rep or as an entrepreneur, you're one of the first people that they call. And so there's times where, like, we don't do any sort of gifting. Like, I tell people, where everybody's going cheap, I go really expensive. So, like, my business cards, I spend $3 on, because most people spend 5 cents on their business card, because that's an area where I can really be different and communicate that the details matter. But on an area like a brochure where everybody goes expensive, I don't have a brochure. My book really is the only brochure that I have, because people will spend like $20, $30 on a brochure and they end up as like toilet paper, end up in a trash can somewhere. And so I'm a big believer in like a trade show. Like, rather than go spend $1 million at a trade show, what if you took that same $1 million and went after the 100 relationships that you wanted as clients and took care of the 100 that you already had? Now we're talking. And oftentimes you can spend a lot less money if by just doing it differently than what your competition is. And so where everybody's going, I want to be in a blue ocean. I want to be in an area where nobody's doing what I'm doing, because that's really the opportunity to grow a relationship and stand out, not by spending 1 or 2% more than your competitors. Like that it becomes wasteful and it just becomes part of the noise.
So you're saying, instead of, if you had $1,500, don't buy 100 people a $15 gift. You're saying you get more mileage out of getting 10 people a $150 gift.
Exactly. Yep.
And you pick the top 10 of just like who's really made the biggest difference for you or whatever, and you're going all out on them, and then send everybody else a handwritten thank you card.
Yeah, at a different time. Don't send a Christmas card that's generic at Christmas. Send I have one professor who works with a lot of the pro sports teams. He sends out a letter on Groundhog Day. Like, that's his time. Who else gets a Groundhog Day letter? Nobody. Like, it's unique. It's funny. You kind of look forward to it. It's the only thing you're getting in February. So it's the timing matters. It's how you're targeting. It's focusing on the 80-20 rule, like any other part of our business. But then taking the time to do all the little details around that gift right. Like, even a gift that's $150, don't just send something from Amazon. Order it in such a way that you either have it brought into your office, or, we're kind of an outsourced gifting solution for companies, but you can do it on your own. Like, have it shipped to you, put a handwritten note inside and send it off. So it doesn't feel like it was automated from Amazon. It feels like it was a gift from you, because that's what it is. Like, it's a representation of the relationship. And the extra, it's like with your wife, like when you have to jump through some major hurdles to get her a gift, like, she feels special and important because of the extra efforts that you went to. It's not just the item, it's all the effort that goes into it.
That's
really,
right. She doesn't care about the present. She just wants to know that you went through pain to have to get that present.
We're all kind of like that. And
I'm just kidding. My wife is not that way. But no, what you're saying is true. It really is the thought matters a lot.
Yeah.
The intention, the work, and I think what you said earlier, John, is the customization.
Yep.
That's like John DeJulius. Do you know John DeJulius?
I do know John. He was in EO Cleveland when I was on the board and a part of EO Cleveland. So I don't know him well. Shep Hyken, my good friend and client and mentor, and him are super close. But he's killing it in the customer service, speaking to Disney and all those kind of places world.
Well, and John's amazing, and Shep is also. So those are all good people. But John is all about secret service, and it's kind of the idea of don't do good service, do secret service, which is basically incredibly customized, hyper specific to that person, which is kind of what you're talking about here with the gift. And certainly there's like a continuum here, right? It's like, one is, let's send everybody a stress ball with our company logo on it. Which is, and then you have in the middle, you have let's buy everybody something useful, a bottle of wine that doesn't have your company logo on it, and then you're on this side going, let's send a few people each something hyper kind of unique to their situation.
Yep. Yeah, and you can send the same thing to 1,000 people, but if it's personalized well, if it includes their spouse, if it's packaged well, if it has a handwritten note, if it comes at an unexpected time, like, I can take the same gift and give it to 1,000 people, but because of all the details that go into that customization process are done well, it feels like it was hand selected just for each person, but there's 1,000 people that are receiving it. So there is a scalability element. And some people will have like a relationship manager that all they do all year long is focus on relationships and gifting, but that's not the norm for most sales reps or most companies. And so figuring out ways that you can have some scale, because you still have to go call on the client and make sales and or do other parts of your business. So there is a hybrid approach that we kind of teach in the book that kind of gets you the best of both worlds. And so we are on the other end of the spectrum, no question, though.
Right. Well, and Just in terms, just a chance in terms of a little bit of the money, like what's an idea of like, how do you figure out what's the right amount of money to spend? Because that's a tough question, right? It's like, okay, do I spend $1,000? Do I spend $50? Do I spend $200? Like, do you have any like guidelines for determining that? Because, next year we're not going to send out 5,000 stress balls. So we have to figure out a new game plan.
Yeah. So our rule of thumb in general, because people are like, oh, I want to send a Rolex. I'm like, you're going to look like you're charging too much. Your margins are too good if you're starting sending out, Rolexes and Louis Vuitton bags for $20,000. So our rule of thumb is whatever you'd spend on a really nice dinner out with a group of people with some really nice wine, really good ball game tickets or a really nice round of golf, you should be willing to spend that on your most important clients, employees, referral partners, whoever. So most of the gifts that we recommend are somewhere between $75 and about $1,500 at the very most. We do go beyond that, and we do go a little bit lower than $75, but that's kind of the sweet spot. And so most of our gifts are probably in the $200 to $500 range. So that's kind of the parameters of because most people are like, well, I picked up the tab at the bar last night and that was $1,000. But when it comes time to gift, they've never spent money on gifting. So it freaks them out to spend more than like $20 on anything. The other thing that we encourage is to have metrics, every other part of your business, you base it on the numbers. And so our metric is at a bare minimum for an important client, you should be willing to reinvest 5% of your net profits from a client. So let's say you have $1 million client and their net profit is $100,000. That means you should spend $5,000 in some way, shape, or form to keep them as a client, to grow them as a client, and hopefully to turn them into and duplicate them, which means inspire them to act on your behalf and open their mouth and talk to their other friends that are in the business that could become clients. So they become a referral source for you. And so 5% of net profits for some people, it's like that allows them to spend $100 on a gift. For other people, it might allow them to spend $1,000, but it's based on a real number. Most people base their gifting very reactively off of a gut feeling. Like, how much are we going to spend on these people? I don't know. Here's $10,000, Susie. Go see what you can find for our top 100 people or our top 1,000 people for $10,000. It's not based on a number. It's based on a gut feeling. And so we try to encourage people to say, like, we're not doing this as a nice to. This isn't a warm, fuzzy thing. Like, this is, I'm looking to invest $1 and get $10 back over the next 20 years. And I really want a real ROI. And I think because most people don't think about it from a strategic perspective and put real numbers to it, it ends up just being random numbers that they throw against the wall. And then it's usually the first thing that's cut in most budgets because it's not strategic and it is just a warm, fuzzy feeling. And because of that, you are wasting money. And so those are some of the basic parameters that we teach our clients to work within.
Mm-hmm. So it's really not about being nice. It's just about making money. That I just want to make sure that we have that captured and highlighted. That'll be the lead tweet. No, it's about both. It's about both. It's about both.
It's both and. Yeah. Profit's not a bad word, the profit is not a bad word, but
no. But what you're saying is this isn't a frivolous. This isn't like, hey, let's have a party or something that just it just disappears. This is a strategic thing. There's a real ROI. I mean, the 5% of net profit is pretty cool. The other thing about that is that seems like a very stomachable number because it's kind of like, well, if you're not willing to invest 5% of what you made off of somebody back into just saying thank you to them, then it's kind of like, is your heart in the right place really anyways? I mean, that's not a huge chunk. I mean, it's not a huge chunk.
No. I mean, that's kind of a baseline. That's like if you're not willing, you keep 95% and give 5%. Like if that equation doesn't work for you, then what we're teaching in Giftology probably doesn't align philosophically, which, some people are like, my good service and my product is my gift to them. And I'm like, well, that's great. But people still want to be, like even the wealthiest people, the highest level people still want to be thanked and appreciated. Like most people walk around with a deficit when it comes to appreciation and gratitude, even in their own personal life. And so I always challenge people. I'm like, yeah, your product and service better be good because all your competitors are probably good as well. Like it's usually the relationship that's the difference. And that those little acts of kindness, if you do them strategically, can be really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm. So I have one more question for you. But before I do that, one of the reasons that we're talking here is just because you actually have some, like, you're in the business of helping people do some of this, which is kind of cool. Obviously, you don't have to use you, but the book is called Giftology, which people can check out. But where do you want people to go if they want to connect with you or kind of learn about the service that that actually does this?
Yeah, so they can go to obviously on Amazon and get the book and Audible and all that kind of stuff. But giftologybook.com, you can learn more about the book specifically and some of the clients we work with. Ruhlin Group, RUHLIN, and then group.com is where what we did for the Cubs and some of our bigger clients and how we operate our kind of gift strategy and logistics company.
I mean, this is eye-opening. I am sitting here going, I don't know if I can really publish this episode next week, a week before Christmas, because like half of our audience is probably just going to be completely like
falling on their sword.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's good, It's like it's. And I'm halfway joking. I mean, I think at the end of the day, any gift that you're trying to do with an open heart is always a good thing. But like anything else, there's a smarter, better way to do it. And it's not just Christmas time; it's also budgeting season. And so as we're thinking ahead to next year, we can be sort of planning and going, you know what, like maybe it's going to be next October that I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do it in September, or whatever. So I think it's really good. Now, the last little question I did want to ask, because this is a business. This is based on a concept of reciprocity. There's some science here. There's some numbers. But one of the things that I did really love is you say that gift giving with strings attached causes problems.
Yeah.
And can you just I thought it would be a good way to end on that note, to just kind of round that out for us. And what does that mean? Because we're talking about using a number here, investing, and hopefully it comes back to us and stuff. But you're very, very clear about saying gift giving with strings attached causes problems. Why do you say that?
Well, I think nobody likes to be manipulated. Like, everybody loves to be loved on and inspired, and most people like to reciprocate. But when you give a gift and then like ask for a referral, it's like a bait and switch. It's like, hey, I sent you that gift with this, specific request in mind. It feels very manipulative. And so, we view our relationships, obviously we're all in business, to make money. But when you can, have a 50-year mindset of, I'm planting seeds and I'm going to continue to love all my clients. And I know that if I do that, like, good things are going to happen, whether it's while they're at this company. Like, I've had some people, they had to leave a company and go to somewhere else before there was fruit from some of the things that we did. And so I don't keep track. It's not like when I'm sending a gift, I'm like, okay, now I better get a referral in the next 6 months. I just know, even from a biblical perspective, that when you plant good seeds, when you take care of people, like, you reap what you sow. And I don't know how that's all going to play out. But I know that if I continue to do the right things to the right people, that there's a 10x, 100x, 1000x return. And I don't know what it's going to be with what person. And so I don't give a gift and then ask for a referral. I don't give a gift and then expect them to do something for me. I give them a gift with open arms. And there is a hope. Like, I'm a human being. There is a hope that good things are going to come from that. But I don't put those expectations. It's like giving your wife a gift and then saying, well, I better get this, this, and this. Like, it just doesn't go well. Like, nobody likes to have those strings attached. And it basically ruins the gift, whether personally or in business. And so we're very we push our clients really hard to say, like, give the gifts, do the right things. It's like it'd be like taking a client out to dinner and then expecting them to do something. Like, you take a client out to dinner because you want to spend time with them and build the relationship. And a gift is no different.
Wow. I love it. I love it. It's really good stuff, and it's a very unique message. It's powerful. Giftology is the book. John Ruhlin is who you have been listening to. And buddy, just thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll make sure to get a stress ball in the mail over to you right away.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know about you, but For me, listening back on that, I realized, man, that was a tough conversation in some ways. I mean, very fun and valuable, but I think I need to pick up my game here in this department in terms of gifts. And some people are just really naturally good at this. And I don't think, for me, honestly, I don't think I'm a great gift buyer. But I want to be. I love to give a great present. And I really admire people like John, and I also think of John DeJulius, who I mentioned in the interview, about just people who just have this real service-minded knack, this sort of selfless lens of what can I do for other people, and be thinking about it. Now, John's is really interesting because he's very intentional about the business aspects of it and what comes back to you in return, which I think is also fabulous, because I think the value of what he's talking about there is it moves it from this nice thing that we should do just because it's a good thing to do, and we should love on our clients, and we should love on our team members, and we should always just bless people around us abundantly that we can. But it's kind of like this thing that we should do, and we may or may not have time for it, all the way to going, no, this is actually a strategic imperative. This is a income producing activity. This is a business generating task that yes, it's a good, nice thing to do, but if you can't just create the focus and intention and margin in your life to do it just because of that, then you should be able to justify empirically that there's a strategy here that really pays off and really makes a difference. And I think there's probably a need here for us to up our game and experiment with this a little bit more. And so anyways, I thought that was cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight and just share, as I went back and listened to kind of basically the 6 main things that I took away personally, because maybe you are like me and you go, wow, I need to elevate my game here in this department, or our company needs to do a better job of showing love to our clients and our referral partners and stuff. And or maybe you have it down and you can just stop listening for the rest because you already have this. But these are the 6 things that I kind of took away that are kind of like things to focus on. So the first realization here for me is that generosity is the secret weapon of influencers. Generosity is a secret weapon of influencers. And the people who give the most get the most. I mean, this goes back to Zig Ziglar saying, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want, right? And it's just sort of a way of the world, but realizing that this is valuable. It's not just a nice thing, but it is empirically, it's profitable, and not just in a dollar sense, but in influence sense, in terms of the people that you get to meet and you get to know as a result of being generous. And I think in a lot of ways that I am generous, and we are, and I think Southwestern Consulting as a company is very generous, particularly in the amount of information and things that we give away for free, just to try to build trust with people and let them know that we're here. But for me specifically in this area of gifts, I think this is kind of a cool idea. So generosity is a secret weapon of influencers. Number 2 is the realization, just the power of reinvestment, the power of reinvesting into relationships. If you think about it, this isn't really costing you anything. This is a reinvestment of profits that have resulted that would not be there if it were not for somebody. So you're simply just reinvesting that into strengthening that relationship and furthering it and expanding the network of profits that relationship will bring. And that's a different way of thinking about it, right? It's a new sort of change. And one of the things too to just highlight that I think John's not necessarily saying you need to spend more money. He's saying spend more money on fewer people, but in total, you could end up actually spending less money. Now, I think depending on where your strategy is currently, you might end up investing more money here, but it is an investment. It's not even an investment. It's a reinvestment. You're not coming up with money that isn't there. You're simply reinvesting, repurposing money that is the direct result of the people that are already helping you grow your business. So it's like, how does that not make any sense? And I really appreciated he challenged me, about saying, if you're not willing to reinvest 5% of what you're making as just a thank you to the people who are helping you create that, then maybe there's a bigger sort of heart issue that's going on there. So reinvesting into relationships was the second just kind of really big highlight for me. The third one is grace, is giving without expectation of receipt. And he hit this right at the end, and I think it's so critical, right? Is you're giving and you have this intention, you have almost the hope that somebody might help you, but you don't have the expectation that they ever will. You're giving kind of with the hope that they might help you, but not the expectation that they ever will. You're giving freely. You're giving openly. You're giving to give. You're giving to show love, knowing, though, that it is a very intelligent, empirical, frugal, fiscally responsible kind of thing that pays off, just like any investment, really. So I think that is really important, though, is a gift with strings attached is really no gift at all. A gift with strings attached is no gift at all. So you're giving to reinvest, but I think a lot of times what happens in things like this is it's almost more like what goes around comes around. It's like, just because you give a gift to some specific person, a lot of times I don't think that the reciprocation comes back to you directly from that person. I think it sometimes comes back, it shows up in your life in other ways, but you always win. It's like you can't outgive God. It's like, no matter how generous you are, it just seems to always kind of come back to you, especially if you're not asking for something or expecting something in return. And that's a transformation. That's a realization. That's a leap. That's a paradigm shift. That's a breakthrough. That is a big one. The fourth big realization for me was just timing. Timing. And this was a reinforcement of something that I did mention in the interview, which I got from that movie, Finding Forrester. And I don't really even remember what the movie was about. I'm pretty sure it was Sean Connery, who was like this writer, and then he mentors this young kid who's like a basketball player in kind of a tougher neighborhood, and they develop this relationship or whatever, and the kid's like wants to be a writer. But I remember that line. I've always remembered that line. And he's talking about women. And he says the key, something to the effect of the key to a woman's heart is an unexpected gift at an unexpected time. An unexpected gift at an unexpected time. Now, it doesn't mean you don't get to give gifts when things are expected, right? Like, I would not advise you to not give gifts on Christmas or birthdays or anniversaries, right? Like, your spouse will probably not be excited if you don't show up on your anniversary with a gift. Don't blame it on me. That's not what we're doing here, right? I am not advocating that. But what I think John is saying, and what I was recalling, which is a valuable lesson, is just the power of that unexpected time. And it stands out. It's naturally, that gift becomes more salient. It's more highlighted. It's more noticeable when it is random. And it's not during the holiday. It's not when they expect it. It's not when you need something. It's just random. And I think that is pretty fabulous. So timing is huge. The fifth thing that was just a realization for me, or a reinforcement, I think, of stuff that I regularly think about, and I see a real lack of this in the world, is abundance. Abundance versus scarcity, right? Scarcity says, man, I can't take that 5% in reinvestment. Is if scarcity goes, I'm already not making enough money, right? Like I can't spend more money on this. Abundance says, look, when you bless people and you love people and you show appreciation for them, it's gonna come back to you. You're gonna win here. This isn't a losing money or a costing money thing. And it's just a shift, because abundance is, I think it's like, Scarcity is always like trying to draw a fence around what you have. It's preventing other people from having access to what you have. It's almost like a sense of hoarding. And I think sometimes people live with a scarcity mindset, and they do it inside of the excuse of being frugal or fiscally responsible. And I think there's just a delicate balance there. I'm a big fan of being fiscally responsible and being prudent and frugal and budgeting and things like that. But when you have an opportunity to give, when you should, and it just always comes back to you. At least it has come back to me. I don't ever feel like there's been a time where I've given more than has ultimately come back to me. So I think abundance believes that it will all work itself out, but scarcity is always keeping track to the second. Abundance isn't afraid of uncertain terms, but scarcity requires like tracking this excruciating detail of like, did it pay off for me? And I think just abundance allows for a focus on others, and scarcity restricts us to more of a focus on ourselves. And so be abundant and be willing to have money kind of flow in and out through you. And I think it's a good thing. And then finally, the last thing, and I really think that this is important to hit home, is the ultimate strategy here is to care, right? Like that is the strategy, is to just care, is to care about your team, to care about your colleagues, to care about your bosses, to care about your investors, to care about your customers, to care about your family members. It's to just care, and not to just give so we can check an item off on our task list, or give and just to meet a certain percentage quota that we've set for ourselves, or set up as some type of strategy, but to care about making people feel cared for. I think maybe that's even a better way of saying it, is the strategy here is to care about making people feel cared for. Because if you don't make them feel cared for, they're going to go somewhere else. And honestly, gift buying is not the only way to make people feel cared for. It's not. Spending money on people is not the only way to make people feel cared for. It's one way, right? But you can write a note. You can spend time with somebody. You can support something they're doing. You can give them advice and information. Like the deal is to just get outside of ourselves and what's going on in our world and get into the service-minded mentality or the service mindset of caring for them. And if you can discipline yourself to, at least I think about for me, it's like it takes this extraordinary discipline to get outside of my own world. It takes intention and practice and focus to not just operate in the world as it occurs or benefits or hurts, but if you can just get outside of that and be regularly and relentlessly intentional about caring for other people, it opens up a whole new world, and it pays off in ways that are much bigger than holding on to things for just yourself. It's caring about making other people feel cared for. So that would be my invite and challenge to you this week, is to just go out and find a way, especially in this time of year, to just care and make people feel cared for. Well, that about wraps up the Action Catalyst podcast for this week. If you haven't yet, please log in to whatever your favorite medium is to listen to the show, and both rate this podcast and leave a comment, as that helps new prospective listeners determine if the show's really a good fit for them.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and screenshot this episode to share with your friends on social media. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst, and subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening.